Whether it's a mohawk, a classic fade, or even a mullet, these styles and more are available at the Vintage Barber Shop. On this episode of the podcast, owner Jim Quellhorst shares how he became a barber and what led him to open his shop in the Parkside Plaza about a year and a half ago. Episode 162 of the Love in Lebanon podcast starts now.
Welcome to the Love in Lebanon podcast, highlighting all the great things happening in Lebanon, Indiana. Have an idea for an episode? Send an email to loveinlebanon@lebanon.in.gov.
Hey everybody, welcome to this episode of the Love in Lebanon podcast. I'm Joe LePage, the Community Development Director for the City of Lebanon. We are on location for this episode of the Love in Lebanon podcast. We're just north of Memorial Park. We are near Cowan's, and we are at the Vintage Barber Shop. What a cool place for you to check out here in Lebanon. I've got Jim Quellhorst with me, and Jim, you just celebrated a year open in February. Thanks for being on the podcast. Thanks for opening up shop in Lebanon.
Oh, you're welcome, Joe.
How has it gone so far? How is the happy belated 1 year anniversary, sir?
Well, it's gone very well. Of course, we've been, me and Kirk Clemmy, which is his dad, he preceded his dad and took over the barbershop, and he ended up closing that shop, and then we basically just, I call it, we flipped the script, basically. I became the owner, and he works for me, but I look at it as not so much just being the owner, but we all kind of just share the cost and the expense of having a place to work and sharing everything so that we can all make a good living. And also at the same time serving the Lebanon community. And we both have been doing that for many years now, over 30 plus years. And so we definitely want to do our best for the people, just like the way that I view anything else that, I want to receive something good, and so I want to give something good to the public, and so that's the way I look at it. Basically, we've been doing it for a long time, and a lot of people know us. But as you know, that Lebanon is growing and getting ready to explode. So we know that there's a lot more people coming, and we've had a lot of new people. So it's gone really well. But and of course, there's been bumps in the road, and like you say, with ownership, there's always challenges. Mm-hmm. So it's been a good year. But it kind of seems like it's kind of just smoothing out more, once you get into a routine, just like anything else. When you do something new, and some of the things in the business we've changed, some of the dynamics as far as we used to be 30 plus years a shop of just strictly walk-in, mm-hmm. and we had enough barbers to be able to do that. But now, when we started this, we really were low on people. It's just me and him starting out. And we struggled with that for several months until finally later on the year, which was in August, we had the third person come on, which we had worked with her, but she was kind of trying to find her way as far as what she wanted to do when we kind of split up. And then I was putting this shop together. But anyway, so we're all back together, and that's made it a lot better. But I still have a fourth spot for anybody that wants to be interested in coming to work at Vintage. I'd be willing to definitely listen to what they have to say and where they want to go with their business as far as cutting hair. And
people may know the Clemmy name, and
they know it very well.
I was going to say it's synonymous with hair cutting and being able to, mm-hmm. to have that kind of that experience of having a quality haircut.
Yes.
If you can kind of talk about how that industry has kind of changed over the years in Lebanon, where there is such a need for a vintage barbershop like we're sitting in right now.
Well, of course, everybody knows, we went through probably, I want to say, back in the 80s when all the chain stores started popping up, like Bo Rick's and Sam's, and there's been several others, Chicago Haircutting Company, all kinds of names out there. And, of course, out of that, we still have Supercuts, and then another one popped up, which it's been a while now, but still, it came later on, but Sport Clips and so on. So I think probably Great Clips and Sport Clips are probably the two biggest chains that are out there. There's some other smaller ones still around, but people, like I was saying before, people are looking for more of a personal hair cutting place, a hometown cutting place. Just like I hear a lot of guys when they come in, they always talk about their experience of going to the barbershop when they were kids and getting a haircut and then growing up and then bringing their kids to the same guy. And the other thing to that is that when you establish yourself, people people all have their favorites. That's normal. And so we all have waiters, and then we have people that don't really care particularly who cuts their hair. But I know one thing that Joe, Kirk's dad, used to do, Joe Clemmy used to do, is that he tried to get, since we were just walk-in, he tried to get everybody to cut on the same level, and so that anybody could jump in any chair and get the same haircut. And so that was his goal, to do that in serving the public as well. And that's our goal as well too. But we all have favorites. But people just love the history. They love the being able to sit in the chair and having the same person. They don't even have to talk about how they want their haircut. They just get in there and get it done and be able to just relax and be able to talk about things.
Well, some of the things you mentioned, and you mentioned some of the kind of the more chain establishments where they're maybe built for more speed. It seems like you guys are built more for that kind of experience, that kind of, that this is your 5 minutes or less, and you're going to be off and going.
We don't want to kick a haircut out and not be finished. And so a lot of those places, they push so hard and they push the workers so hard that it makes it hard for them to get a good finished haircut. And so that's our goal, not to just go fast. Of course, you don't want to be there all day either. You don't want to go to the other extreme, but you want to get a good haircut, and you want to be able to get a consistent good haircut all the time, and that's what they're looking for. Plus, they're looking for, like you said, the experience. And
everybody, we're physically sitting at 1653 North Lebanon Street. That's right near the Memorial Park and right near the North Cowens location, kind of catty corner from Pizza Hut and Speedway nearby. If you can kind of set the stage in here, Jim, it looks like you've kind of walked back in time, as the title of your business, Vintage Barber Shop, would attest. Yeah. But a lot of the old barber chairs, a lot of the metal vintage signs, a lot of the history, a lot of the fun stuff, you guys have really pulled on that historic thread and really have created kind of a fun kind of time capsule, so to speak, when you walk in here. That was by design, though, wasn't it?
Yes. So I first thought of the name, and then I was just like, I've always liked the old theme, the old barber theme and stuff. And it also, too, kind of keeps it, still keeps it separated instead of just being a salon, which mixes, a lot of salons mix the two together. And so, like I was saying before, a lot of guys like to go to a place and kind of vent, and like I was saying, a sanctuary place where they can just kind of relax and bring their kids and even, their sons, their young sons, and bring them up into the nostalgia and the history and all that stuff. And plus, I've always loved history. And so the tradition of the barber and the things that go along with it, I've always been interested in that. So I'm just trying to stick with that and just trying to give people a feel, but something not passing away, but still staying as a institution for the guys, so to speak, for a place to go and just experience.
Exactly. And everybody, we're talking
a little bit of the past.
Exactly. Everybody, we're talking with Jim Quellhorst. He is the owner of Vintage Barber Shop. You can find it at 1653 North Lebanon Street. You can call or text for an appointment. That's 765-894-6958. I'll put all this info in the body of the podcast, everybody, so you don't have to type or text or write down anything while you're driving or things like that. But if we can kind of get into your history a little bit, Jim, of when did your love of helping people look and feel good and providing that sanctuary, as you said, being able to have a place for them to be able to spend some time. And before we hit record, everybody, we were joking about, if it takes a little bit longer, that honeydew list, you're not able to get to it as quickly as maybe you would in past days if you're going. Yeah, exactly.
Get a longer break.
When did that love of cutting hair and having people experience what they can with a quality cut, when did that happen for you?
Well, as I was saying before, I got out of high school and I joined the service. I joined the Air Force, active duty, and I had an older sister that went to barber school in about 1978, I believe, and she went to the one that everybody goes to in Indianapolis, is on Washington Street. And I was in barber school, or not in barber school, but in the service, and it just hit me that I just felt like one day that's what I wanted to do. I should go to barber school. And so I just seemed like a good thing to do, just like when I decided to join the service, too. It seems like a good thing to do, But I ended up getting out. I did 3 years and 2 months active duty, and I was at a point where I had 10 months left, and they had a program to allow you to get out and go into active reserves and finish your time in the active reserves, which basically they basically doubled your time. I had 10 months, so I had to do 20 months in the reserves, and they have Grissom up there in Peru and near Kokomo, and so I went ahead and put in the paperwork for that, and it went through, and then I came home, and I was checking on barber school, which there was a good school down on Lafayette Road, really good school. They actually taught you, your trade and your skill, the basics as much as they could, of course, you're always going to learn more on the job. And so, anyway, it's a really good school, and actually, most of the barbers around here in Lebanon from that time, including Kirk, that we all went to that school, and it was a really good school. But unfortunately, it's closed now. But
what is it about that field though that was really one of those things where like, man, I need to get into this, or that where you gravitated towards that out of the military, or even during the military?
Well, I guess I kind of always had, just like my sister, I felt like I kind of had a little bit of artistic ability, and plus, I just like serving people. And it's funny too, because I never used to talk very much at all. Actually, I was very reserved and shy, and of course, I've come out of that a little bit, but after all these years. But
well, you're a pro here on the podcast.
Yeah, and that's part of it too. You just talk to people. It's just treating people like you want to be treated, and so we're not all perfect, but we try our best. So that's what I've always strived to do, and try to give people a good haircut that I wouldn't be afraid to wear myself, with an exception of a few. I mean, the people that want, like mohawks and some of the things we've done.
You've never
like
rocked
that.
the mohawk?
Never rocked the mohawk.
No,
I thought
yet.
about a flat top, but I decided against that after a while. But yeah, so and we've done letters and numbers and lightning bolts and Nike signs and stuff like that. So
very cool.
Whatever the fad is, the skaters cuts, and of course we've done a few mohawks too, but also too like the what do they call that? The mullet.
Okay. Oh, yeah.
It's funny because over the years I've noticed too that they'll take old haircuts and give them a new name because it makes them real cool. Like because we were always taught tapered haircuts in school and everything, and then one day somebody asked us for a fade, and I'm like, a fade?
Yeah, fade.
Please describe what you're talking about. And so, you're talking about a fade or a taper haircut. So anyway, it's funny how they give old haircuts. Even the mullet, I remember in barber school, there's a guy that had a so-called mullet, but back then they were actually calling him a shag haircut.
Okay.
And then about within 5 to 10 years later, not long after that anyway, they started calling him a mullet. So
okay. That's business in the front and party in the back, everybody.
Exactly.
Just FYI.
Yeah.
You've never rocked one.
We've actually even done a flat top mullet before as well.
So you are a true artist of the follicle persuasion here, Jim.
Right.
And if you can kind of the other services that are offered here, is it the old, like I'm thinking, you can get the warm towel treatment in the shave and all that
So
stuff.
we're not really doing the straight razor,
Okay.
and the reason why is because it's changed so much that it's just a very big liability to do the straight razor and the lather. The other factor to that is the time involved and the cost. If you match the cost with the time, then a lot of people don't want to pay that. Even I've seen years ago at the Keystone Mall, they had a place in there for a while that did face shaves, but they did not do it with a straight razor. They used a safety razor, but they charged $30 for one and then $50 for the other. And so, most people aren't going to want that.
So you just punted on that and said, forget it. We'll just cut great hair.
And the
just call it.
liability.
Yeah.
But we actually have very good foil razors that do a very good job. I mean, they're high end, they're very high quality, and they do a very good job. So we can equal that. But we do neck shaves. I don't have a hot lather machine, but that's one of the things. This is my second year. That's one of the things I'm going to do is add 2 hot lather machines, one for each side, and be able to do that.
Very cool. But how much pride does it bring you to be able to have you and the rest of the team here be able to provide those things? You talked about the Nike signs and the numerical additions and the different varieties of haircuts, and don't want to get
the style is or the trend.
Yeah, and don't want to get too stereotypical, but it seems like those are maybe for the younger generation, and you have some of those others that are a bit older like us, and
we actually have one customer, an older customer, and he's probably rocked a mohawk for 40 years.
No way.
40 years, yes.
Must love the style.
He started out by just doing it to aggravate somebody. I won't say who it is, but to aggravate somebody, and then he just everybody loved it and he liked it, and he's kept it ever since.
No way.
Yep.
Man, I'm jealous to be able to have that. Those of us who are follically challenged.
Yeah.
Man, that'd be awesome. But I'm guessing it brings you joy to be able to be able to cut someone's hair like that, and be able to have just being able to provide stories like that. Are there legacies like that where it's a grandfather bringing in his grandkids and that type of thing? You get the whole family?
We have numerous people that, we're on third generation easily on people that we've cut their hair, and then their kids' hair, and then their kids' hair. We're in the great grandfather generation type of thing. So we're at least on the third on some. So it's pretty amazing. It's crazy how fast it goes too. It just goes really fast.
And I'm guessing that gives you some joy to be able to be recommended that way, where it's not just one guy coming in, but it's he's willing to bring in his kids.
Oh, we have some great stories of stuff, funny things that have gone on.
Oh, I need to hear them.
I actually have one guy coming in today, and we cut his hair when he was just a little itty bitty with his grandfather, and we had a situation where it was just a funny situation where a little teasing going on, and anyway, we even bring it up now today, and it actually involved a dog, and imaginary dog, we'll say. This guy was saying there was a dog in this room in the back, and this other barber that used to work with us at the time, he was going on and teasing him about saying, you don't want to go back there because Pedro's back there, and Pedro's a mean dog. And I don't know how he did it, but he kind of even threw his voice because the boy was like, oh, I'm not afraid of no Pedro. And he went to grab the doorknob, and the guy kind of threw his voice with a bark, everything, and he got really afraid. And he turned around and ran right into his grandpa, about knocked him down. It was hilarious.
So Pedro the dog.
Pedro.
Okay,
yeah.
Okay, that's hilarious. That's hilarious.
So we still talk about it, and I've even spoken to his kids about it, and they just laugh
And so as you talked about earlier in the podcast, we're talking with Jim Quellhorst, everybody, from the Vintage Barber Shop here on north side of town, 1653 North Lebanon Street. Those are the type of memories. Those are the type of endearing stories I'm guessing you're hoping to have live on in not just that family, but if it may not be a Pedro story, but other legacy stories where the barbershop is a fond memory of a place to go and be able to spend some actual time and not just quickly move on.
It becomes more than just a haircut. It becomes, a tradition and just something that even, like I said, Dad can bring in his boys and they all do something together, and it's just kind of like dad and son time and stuff like that. So, and of course, guys even bring their little daughters in here too, and then we get to give them some candy and just they kind of get to enjoy the atmosphere as well.
Exactly. And before we hit record, everybody, Jim, it was a great phrase we wrote down. It's not a chain, it's an experience, and that's what they're trying to put forth here on the north side of town at the Vintage Barber Shop. You talked about wanting to add some things. What's the growth model look like as year 2 has begun, celebrating 1 year back in February, as we mentioned earlier, but things that you'd like to add or possible wrinkles that you may be putting in? You showed off some artwork that may be adorning the walls here sometime soon, but...
Yeah, there's still some things I'd like to add. As we open, my goal was just to get open and get the basics in place so we can get open and get going. And I've added to it in the last year too and put some touches on it. And there's still some things, like I said, I want to add the hot lather machines, and there's still some tin signs I'd like to put up, and anything else I can think of. And I just remembered too that originally I wanted to put some trim around here in the waiting area to kind of make it look still old style. Like I got this picture up here.
Yeah.
That kind of looked like that.
A lot of black and white pictures, everybody. If you come in and check it out, which I highly recommend, you can come see where, what's trying to be replicated here, and it's doing a really good job here, Jim and the team. And just a lot of the old-timey black and white photos of just kind of taking you back in time.
Even have an old one over there. It shows like it took place in Britain during the war, in the Second World War. The guy's out there on the airfield, and the guy's cutting his hair.
Well, it looks like big hedge clippers too in that picture. Yeah.
Yep. And then one that's got the old hairstyles. It kind of shows some of the old hairstyles, which I'd like to do some more of that. That shows like beard trims and stuff like that. But.
And it was one of those things growing up in Lebanon. You wanted to open up the shop here, or you transplanted in Lebanon, fell in love with it, and stayed. How did that work, and why here?
Well, I ended up coming back. Of course, I grew up in Lebanon. My family's from here, and I basically after I got out of the service, I came home. Of course, I went to barber school. And then I started working at a shop up here in town that used to be near the bank, near the it's Huntington, but it was Union Federal.
Gotcha.
It was an old shop there. There's been obviously many old shops here in town over the years, and just like that old barber picture that I showed in 1916 that shows a real picture in South Lebanon Street on July 4th, 1916. But anyway, there was a lot of old shops, and we've heard about those shops and some of the old barbers and stuff. I just wanted to come back here and work, and of course so many people by then, and of course you're starting up too. It takes you a while to build up your clientele and to get out there and get known, and people recognize where you are, and so on and so forth. And of course, being from a big family, that didn't hurt either, because I got a lot of relatives that come to me and have over the years and so on. So.
All those relatives of potential clients. It's good.
Yes, yes. Yep. I even have an uncle, my dad's only brother years ago. He was living, when I was going to barber school, he was visiting, and he lived in South Dakota, and he was in a little bitty town, and he pretty much owned the town as far as he owned the general store that was there, and he owned, of course, he owned some other property where he lived there, but he also managed a cheese factory, a cheese producing place there. And then he owned the general store, which entailed a barber shop and a beauty shop and a general store, like a grocery store and so forth. But he had 12 kids, so
it's a lot of heads to cut there.
And then he owned a restaurant there too. But anyway, he even told me, he goes, "Oh, you get out of school, you can come up there and take over that shop. You know, nobody's working in there." And it's like, I don't know about that. Yeah. You know, because it was a little town, and there was nothing 50 square miles around there, so.
But Lebanon always held a pretty special place for you.
Yes.
It's always been home.
Yes, and some people don't know, and some do, but you can't really see it as well now. But my dad, we grew up on a small farm south of town, just right behind the business park on 125 South, which used to always be called the Middle Jamestown Road. And there's a round barn there, and some people haven't seen it, but my grandparents owned that farm, and we grew up across the road from there. My dad built a house, and then he farmed the farm for my grandmother because, you know, his dad had passed away many years earlier, but he farmed the farm for her to help her to have income, and then he, of course, reaped some benefit from that too. But there's a round barn in there, and there's a book called Round Indiana, and I saw it years ago, and there's that barn there is made out of stone, and it's one of 2 barns in the state that are made out of stone, and the rest of them are wooden barns that are round. Anyway, that barn is out there, and the house was built in 1872.
Still standing?
Still standing. Okay. It's fully restored, and the last thing that happened to that house that property after the house was fully restored, the people that owned it at the time had the barn restored, as far as the roof mainly, because the stone is intact, of course. But the roof was, and they put the cupola on the top, which is what they used when they had no lighting, no electricity, and they used that to light the barn. And they put the cupola back on there, but they had the Amish do that. And so it looks pretty good. It's in pretty good shape. But unfortunately, the people who own it now, though, they planted a lot of trees, and they covered up to where you can't see the barn very well now as you're driving down the road. You used to always be able to see it from pretty far away, but it's hard to see it now.
Kind of a hidden treasure, a hidden gem there, covered by trees. Well, Jim, thanks so much for being on the podcast. Really appreciate it. Everybody should come check out the Vintage Barber Shop on the north side of town, 1653 North Lebanon Street. Walk-ins are welcome, but you can also call or text for an appointment, 765-894-6958. You can ask to see Pedro the Invisible Dog. You can,
I think he's gone by now.
Okay, might be gone by now. But, buddy, great to meet you, and thanks for being on the podcast and choosing Lebanon.
Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, many years of success continued on from now, of course. Thank you. And thanks, everybody, for listening to this episode of the Love and Lebanon podcast. Come check out the Vintage Barber Shop. You can check out more episodes of the pod coming up soon. Take care.